Alright, I appreciate you joining me here on my Call in the Ozarks channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a kind of design and make a knife sheath, a leather knife sheath. Now, Eric Rivers inspired this knife design for me and come out pretty good, I think. And what I need to do now is make a sheath for it. This is a knife design. You can check out his, just type in Eric Rivers, I think it's a Rivers Experience on his YouTube channel. And for making knives, it's really just step by step, and he just tells you what to do and how to do it. It's just really, really good. So a little shout out to Eric. But what I'm going to do is try to show you how to make a sheath for this, and that's going to fit it like a glove. Now, I've sped it up quite a bit here, but the main thing to do is you get it on paper. If it's not going to work on paper, some kind of heavy paper here, you know, so you can just construction paper you get at Walmart, those big poster boards, that's what I like to use. But if it doesn't work on paper, it's not going to work on leather. So what you do is you just get that paper, you lay it out, and you lay the knife down on it, and you just start drawing where it'll be, and then cut this your outline out and see if it works. I've had to do this about 3 different times to get this angle right here perfect, so it just fits that. It looks really good. Here's one I did for one knife, and you can kind of see how this right in here. Boy, it looks really good with that knife in it. Oh, it looks so good in there. But if you take your time, you can make a sheath that fits the knife. And then if this is a good seller for me, this knife, and this other knife sheath that I showed you there is a good seller, so I keep the all of my outlines so I don't have to reinvent the wheel for all my sheaths, you know. So that's a good idea to keep that. But now, this one right here seems like everything's going to fit pretty good. So I'm pretty sure I'm ready to go. It's going to have a little piece of leather in here, a little spacer, so that it won't cut the threads, because it's going to have sewing going up this way. It'll also give it a little bit more room, because this is a 1/4 inch thick steel. Now this knife is made out of what do you call those things? The leaf springs on an old truck. And I think it's 5160 or 5180 steel. And boy, it's a beast. And it deserves a good sheath. It's going to fit this just about perfect. I always cut this here a little bit long just to make dang sure that I've got it right. Okay. So right now I'm going to trim the edges of this and burnish the leather. You know, wet it down just a little bit, and you burnish the leather. Now the third thing you need to do is to dye the thing, so because if you got it sewed together and you try to dye it, it's really hard to get in there, and it doesn't do a really good job. So And actually the next job is going to be, before you sew this down, is we're going to have to burnish these sides, because you can't get in there when this is sewed down. So you really got to think ahead, or you're going to cause yourself a lot of work. What we're going to do, when you do this burnishing, you don't want to put too much water in there, because it's got to be stiff, but it's got to have some moistures so the heat can build and burnish the edges, make them hard, start stiffening them up. And again, we don't want to do these yet. We'll do that later. We'll do this first. You take this little burnishing gadget here and get the right size, and you just give it one of these. Okay, so we need to sew this down. And push that stitcher straight down. Double check before you cut that thread, because I've done it more than once, or I've cut it too short. Now, some people tie it off, double knot it and all that, but it leaves a big mess, kind of. So what the guy at the leather shop showed me, all you need to do is pull those nice and tight, get you a lighter, and just burn those down, because this is, leave them kind of not terribly long, but leave them a little bit long. And then, okay, now you've got these two sticking up like that. I think you can see that. The thread sticking up. Now you do one at a time. So you're going to melt these down, you're going to smoosh it down to make it flat, and that is not going anywhere. It's not going to pull out, and it's perfectly flat. No glue mess, no nothing. Make sure you don't get the threads next to it. When you get done, you got that. Alright, now next thing we're going to do is make a little piece of leather that goes in here. Alright, now what I like to do now to make that little welt to go in here, if you just grab your piece of leather that you just cut this out of, we're going to make, because it's exactly what you put, we're going to cut it out of here. What I do to make that right is use my compass again. Give yourself plenty of extra. I give myself a good 3/8 of an inch, because you can cut it off later if you want to. So give yourself. Alright, here's our welt. What I want to look at is what this is going to look like next to this. Yeah, we're getting pretty close. That's what you're going to want. Now what we're going to do is we're going to glue this in there, and then come back after it's dried for about an hour or so, and then punch our holes, and then we're going to either you can make the threads look like this type here, or you can kind of make them fancy like I did on my other sheath, which I kind of like to do. It gives it kind of a Native American look. You can double stitch it, or you can just trim it with this, or you can use this as the final stitch. I'm getting where I use this as the final stitch. I like that. I like to use this Wellwood contact cement. I guess any brand will work. I get this at Lowe's. Got a little applicator, comes right in. It's really handy. And I get the small can. That way it doesn't go bad on you. Okay, I'm going to do this side first and then that. There we go. Okay, that looks really good on that side right there. All right, let's go ahead and pin that. Okay, now you look it over real good. You make good and certain that you got everything pretty darn close. And we'll let this dry. Alrighty, now the next step is going to be to either cut down or grind down, however you want to do that, this little spacer that we put in there. So I've got, since I make knives and got some other tools, I'll take it over to a grinder to do that, into a little edger. Okay, now we'll give her one last little coat on the edge here to kind of lighten things up a little bit. There we go. Alright, now one thing you can kind of end up with is a few of these little, if you can see that good or not, these little kind of ragged ends on here on this non-veg tanned leather. So what I do, I like to take a little lighter and just go along the edge, and it'll burn those edges off and it looks a little better. It cleans it up pretty good. Okay, now we are ready to put the lacing in. I'm going to use some lacing. I got some new lacing. This 100-pound imitation sinew. Right there should do it. I use pencil because it'll just come right off this leather when we get done. Okay, now what I'm going to do is start up here, close as I can get to the edge. Got a little indentations now. And grab this thing. This one of these here is worth the investment. Put it on about the smallest hole I got. I'll start putting these through. This goes through it like butter. Take your time getting that perfectly centered around those little indentations you made. have it. Got all the holes around in there, nice and neat. Now we got to do is just put the lacing through it. All right, now when I start putting this lacing through here, you're going to need enough to go all the way from the top to the bottom. That's quite a bit of it. What my little formula is whatever this distance is right here, you do it about 7 or 8 times as long as your string, 7 or 8 times as long as your whole distance here. It's quite a bit. You think, well, that's way too much, but it's going to take that much. So I'm going to measure this out, and then I'm going to measure this out probably about 8 times as long on each side. That's quite a bit of it, but it needs it. Here we go. There's your first one, and I'll just come back. I went through that hole this way, so you go exactly the same way. Just keep on going all the way down. You can see what I'm trying to accomplish here. Let's straighten it. Next hole down, and just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. Keep all your stitches nice and straight as this is make that as long as this thread is. Alrighty. You can see that's going to be really pretty, nice and thick. Now we just start on the other side and go the opposite direction. Keep track of what you're doing. Okay, now I'm going to come in on the back side. There's this side. And there. And that side. Now the last thing to do is going to be to put a knife keeper in here. A little piece of leather with a snap on it. Alright, and now the female part of the snap goes on the top. The male part of the snap goes on the bottom. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. There you got your 2 slots. And I believe we are done. Take your knife, slide it in there, snap it in, and we are done. What I'll do is put my little moniker on the back here of Alex Wigg's Steel and Leather, and I'll be done. Let me know what you think about this. It's kind of a long video, but it's making a knife sheath. If you want to make a custom good looking knife sheath, it takes some time, takes some experience. But hit the like button and please subscribe. I really appreciate that. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.